Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 219 of the J Situation Podcast. I'm recording this on July 9th, 2024. How are all you wonderful folks doing? Man, I hope you're doing well, and I hope all of my Houston friends are okay. Yeah, Hurricane Beryl decided to take a right turn. Yeah, she did. Decided to take a right turn and head your way if you're in the Houston area. So I know a lot of folks have been without power for quite some time. I know how that is. Been there, been through it. You are all in our prayers. Please stay safe. Hopefully things will go back to normal soon for you. This will be a technically focused episode today. We're going to be going over last week's white paper on the Four Systems Monarch 762 silencer. One of the features of this talk is contextual comparison, both of high-fidelity test data analysis as well as physical characteristics of silencers. I think it's important to focus on that for full context. Now, in keeping with that theme, I have chosen to post a photo with this episode showing three silencers. That's right. So first, the Helios QD, then the Anthem S, then the Monarch 762. Okay, so all are shown in their tested configurations, and you can see how they are almost all the same length. And if you've been keeping up with the research pedigree at pewscience.com, you will also see that their performance on bolt action 308 is very similar. Yeah, so we're going to tackle this topic today. I hope it's informative for all of you. Should be good. And first, I want to give you some information about the companies who make this podcast possible every week. That's right. This episode is brought to you by Legion Athletics, because nothing you do, exercise, sports, really anything, is worth doing without consistency. And you have to do something all the time if you want to be really good at it. Legion Athletics can help you with that. They have whey protein, pre-workout, post-workout, creatine. They don't have everything you need, but they have a lot of it. Okay, visit legionathletics.com. There's a link in the show notes. There's a link on the website. Code word PewScience to save 20% off of your first order. Keep using the code even after your first order to get points. They're loyalty points, and you can use those as good as cash to get 10% off everything you ever order, always using that PewScience code to get strong. It's important. This episode is also brought to you by Top Gun Range Houston. That's right. If you're in the Houston area, even if you're just passing through, as long as there's not a hurricane, go check them out. And to be clear, they are doing okay. Spoke with Kyle last night. I know their power was out, but I haven't spoken with them today. I've been tied up. I'll check on them later tonight. Hope you're doing okay, Kyle. Stay strong, sir. You can rent pistols and rifles and shotguns and machine guns. You can even rent silencers there. It's a pretty great place. Largest firearm rental fleet in the entire state of Texas. And we have a lot of guns in this state. So check out their firearm rental inventory at topgunrange.com. You can also find them on Instagram at Top Gun Range. This episode is also brought to you by High End Armament Technologies out of Oklahoma. Robert and his crew up there at High End Arms try to give you access to a wondrous array and wondrous assortment of infrared sighting systems, thermal optics, rare firearms, things like that. Check them out at highendarms.com. And they have a Facebook page, which is also High End Arms if you're still on Facebook, which I would not recommend. Tell them Jay sent you. This episode is also brought to you by the largest distributor of silencers in the known universe, Silencer Shop. You can use their kiosk to do your fingerprints and photos electronically. And in turn, you cut down on errors. You simplify your silencer purchasing process. You get a money-back guarantee. It's pretty good. No transfer fees, no paperwork errors. Just you and your silencer with no drama. It truly is silencer ownership simplified. And finally, the meat of all this, the thrust of it, as it were. This podcast is entirely brought to you by the Pew Science Laboratory. It's pushed by the Pew Science Laboratory. That's why it exists. I'm the technical director of the lab. In the interest of public education, we have chosen to put on this podcast for you every week and run a public research effort which continues to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. You can visit pewscience.com for the suppression rating. It is the simplest and the most accurate hearing safe rating for your suppressed small arms based on true human inner ear response of the entire gunshot. The entire suppressed small arm weapon system history from before the combustion takes place all the way until all the combustion is gone. and Pew Science is the home of the Silencer Sound Standard. There are 7 sections, and it is the most in-depth and accurate silencer data and analysis in the entire world, and it is all available to the public 24/7 at pewscience.com. And you yourself listening right now, you can support this podcast. You can be a part of this. You can support the lab. You can support Pew Science. You can support all the testing we do by joining with a membership at pewscience.com. That would really help. It would help keep the lights on, and who doesn't love that? Also, if you're not into spending a monthly fee and times are tight, there's a donate feature. And hey, even if you are a member and you want to give us more money, donate more. No, you don't have to though. In fact, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to. You don't have to pay anything. I would ask if you're not able to contribute monetarily, that's fine. I would ask to just spread the word, help folks know that Silencers and Guns are awesome. Give the podcast a good rating. Like and subscribe on YouTube or iTunes or Spotify or wherever you choose to get your podcasts. Okay, it would help. I promise. So I have one topic for you today, but it's a long one. Sound Signature Review 6155. The 4 Systems Monarch 762 on 308 bolt action. High-performing silencer. Ultra-competitive platform. How is 4 Systems accomplishing this performance? And what can we expect of it on other platforms? How does the Monarch compare with similar performing silencers, for example, like the Helios QD or the Anthem S, both in the picture with it today on the episode. Okay, yeah, good questions, right? And so this is the technical discussion of the white paper published last week. And so what we'll do is we'll write down our sole timestamp today, which will be 6 minutes and 56 seconds. Okay. Yeah, so topic 1. 1 second. Topic 1 that I just explained. See, now if you guys skipped ahead, you didn't hear me explain the topic. Not going to repeat it. No, topic 1. This is Sound Signature Review 155. In-depth technical discussion with a lot of contextual performance comparison. And we'll get technical. So, 1 second. I've had tons of meetings today, and there's a frog in my throat. I'm going to pause this 1 moment, please. Okay, I'm back. Yes, so there are indeed levels to the game with regard to small arm suppression performance. We know that. You've been following this effort for quite some time, so you know that as well. And I will say the 308 bolt action data set on pewscience.com is one of the best displays of levels of competition. I do believe that. It's an extremely extensive data set. It's been cultivated over many years. And there are a ton of silencers here, guys. And because it's bolt gun data, it really isolates a lot of variables. There are people who do get upset that we started testing on a bolt gun. That they did get upset about that. What those people forget is that the second article that we ever published was on a semi-auto pistol. I mean, the global research pedigree at pewscience.com contains tons of semi-auto data. It does. But at its core, when it comes to pure silencer characterization, studying the pure phenomenology of suppression, when you really want to look at the physics, bolt gun is king for that. It really is king. And it's undeniable. So, when I was sitting down to prepare this talk, actually, I was looking at the rankings table on the website. I had filtered by 308. I sorted by overall composite suppression rating descending. And you get down to where the 4 Monarch 762 is sitting. And you really see something interesting here. You see incredibly close ratings. I mean, we're talking tenths of a point differentials here, guys. Literally neck and neck. And these things are giving you, essentially, the same hearing damage risk potential on the host. Everything the Monarch 762 is touching in performance is touching it right back. Okay? And it's very important to understand this. It's very important for people to understand that the suppression rating is an objective metric focusing on human inner ear response. It is not a subjective score. It is not a score, guys. It is a calculated metric to be used with the dose chart. If you want to view it as a score, you can't. Okay, knock yourself out, but it's not. It's not subjective, okay? So, how much danger can one expect from using a 4 Systems Monarch 7.62 on a 308 bolt-action rifle with a 20-inch barrel fired in the free field at the mil standard height of 1.6 meters above the ground? How much danger does that specific configuration generate? That's my question to you. Do you know? How much danger? Well, that is what the sound signature review tells you. That is what I'm telling you. That is what we tell you. How much danger? A sound signature review is a review of the signature of the suppressed small arm weapon system. Okay, so I'm being very careful how I tell you this. When someone reviews data and analysis, when they go through something and they're reviewing it, meaning they're reading through it and examining it, they're reviewing it, and then they summarize the findings, they give their review. Yes? Yes. What are we reviewing? The sound signature, the fingerprint of the suppressed small arm weapon system, which includes the weapon, the ammunition, and the silencer. Therefore, the name of the publication is Sound Signature Review 6155. That is how the articles were named. They're named after what they are. I just wanted to clear that up really quick. Just some of you may be misunderstanding what this is. I see some things people are confused. That's okay. It's okay to be confused, but now I'm trying to help you not be confused. This is the 155th time we've talked about this. Okay. So in this talk, like I said, I want to help you understand how this particular silencer on this particular host weapon with this particular ammunition is achieving the level of danger protection it achieves. Okay? You see the words I'm using? This is how much danger protection. Is that an easier thing for you to understand? If I say, instead of saying suppression rating, what if I say danger protection? Does that make you think about it differently? It shouldn't make you think about it differently because I'm not changing what it means. It is always meant that. Maybe if I say it like this, it will help you. I hope it does. I'm trying to use different words to help people who maybe have trouble reading or listening or remembering. And that's okay. Not everyone learns the same way. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll all together now pull up the article on pewscience.com, 6155. You can do that at home if you like, or drinking a beer at the bar at the airport waiting for your flight. Okay, if you're a member, please pull up the member review. If you're not, that's okay. Pull up the public free version. Okay, 1 second. That's 6155. Now before we get into this, excuse me. Before we get into this, you need to understand what exactly was tested. You might think you know, might not know. It's very important that you read this or you listen. We tested the 4 Monarch 7.62 with a Reardon Atlas hub mount with a Liberty Precision Machine Eclipse closed-tine flash hider. Okay. This is not a direct thread mount. This is not the same dimensions as the direct thread mount. Their performance, in all likelihood, is different than what you would get with the direct thread mount. Is the performance higher in the test than what you would get with the direct thread mount? Potentially, yes. Quite possibly, yes, in this case. Is the performance lower than what you would get with the direct thread mount? That is possible. That is also, it's not impossible. So I'll say it's possible. We don't know, but this is what was in the contract. So and this is what was tested. And we do ask. It's not a surprise. So this is a premeditated decision. This is a premeditated client decision. Okay. Just want to let you know. This is important for you to understand. We will make some guesses about possible outcome variation as we progress through the talk, but I wanted to set the stage with that because, and you can see it in the picture. Look at the picture I posted. Don't get it twisted, okay? This is very, very important for you to understand this properly. If you want to really use the word context, let's use context. So bottom line up front, do I even have this upright? Yes, okay. Bottom line up front, 29.4 suppression rating, 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer in the mil standard test location, 1.6 meters above the ground. 44.7, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear. Again, mil standard test location. Okay. These locations are not approximate. They're not approximate. These are not guesses. These are measurements at locations that are determined during our testing protocols. They are within tolerances that exceed that of the mil standard. And when I say that, I mean our tolerances are tighter. Let me be very clear with what I'm saying. We use tighter tolerances than dictated in the mil standard. Okay? It means something when you test to a standard, and the silencer sound standard is a strict interpretation of mil standard 1474 echo. Okay? It's very, very clear. And it's very important you understand. Okay. So, this silencer achieves a damage rating. You want to call it damage rating? We can call it damage rating of 29.4, 1 meter left of the end cap of the silencer, 44.7, 6 inches right of the shooter's right ear. This results in a 44.9 composite suppression rating on the 20-inch 308 bolt action rifle. And this is what I was talking about. Mid-40s composite. Okay. Now, before we get further, just go to the rankings table if you can. And if you can't, I'll walk you through the logic here, guys. Okay. Go to the rankings table. I'm pulling it up right now in front of me. Because none of this matters without context. None of it. And you are in luck, context enjoyers. You have the most real 308 bolt gun data on the planet. Notice how I just explained how we have tolerances that are tighter than the mil standard. I want you to remember we said that. That is a surprise tool that's going to help you later, because I can tell you right now, not everyone does that. And actually, I would say that very, very few. In fact, I would actually be surprised if anyone meets the tolerances we do. In fact, I know for a fact that anyway, I know who doesn't, and the list is long. It's important, very important. So this is why when you look at this list, I want you to look at the list, and I want you to understand errors stack. And we have gone to great lengths to remove the stack. You follow? So look at the range of mid-40s. Okay. Where is the Monarch sitting? Right in between the Liberty Precision Machine Anthem S and the CGS Helios QD. Okay, fine. Silencer Central Banish 30 Gold is pretty close too. May as well be identical in some respects. Heck, the Boss Chairman is pretty close too. Hey, you want to keep going? The Rugged Surge is pretty close. Damn close. Damn close. Hell, keep going. Enticer S, pretty close. Pretty close. Guys, this is stacked competition. Stack competition. Okay, now, are all of these silencers the same size? No, not all of them, no. No. Not all of them, no. Are they the same weight? No way, Jose. Nope. Same accuracy potential? Nope. Nope. Again, no. Same flash performance? Not even close. Same durability? No way. No way. Same flow rate? Same back pressure? Not in your life. But the suppression ratings are similar. You see what I'm saying? It's not a suppressor rating. It is a suppression rating. You see, I'm helping you. Words matter. The words I don't mince words. I'm very purposeful with the writing, with the speaking. I'm saying, I mean what I'm saying. Suppression rating. Okay, cool. That's why I named it that. So the 4 systems Monarch is hitting hard. Okay, hitting hard. And it's with some heavy hitters. Okay. People will remember the CGS Helios QD testing, yes, on 308. Do you remember? Do you remember it was over 4 years ago now, in 2020, you remember? Yeah. Remember how Pew Science had to essentially test it many, many times because the results were so surprising. We thought we were making a mistake. That CGS Helios QD test program was not a contracted test series. I don't know if some of you new to Pew Science know that. That was actually done with full member funding. That was funded entirely by Pew Science, and CGS barely even knew who we were at that time. And it turns out we ended up showcasing how CGS silencers worked after that. And in fact, our analysis is probably the only analysis in the world that showed that. And then CGS and a lot of other companies, they realized who we were and what we do. And here we are. And now you see the same thing is happening again, this time under contract. Yes. And this time years later, I think with a lot more testing and analysis under our belt, I think the collective we understand performance expectations a lot more on the Stealth weapon, and we really know what we can and can't expect from certain technologies. And I think that the Monarch 762 is doing very well. It's doing very well on the host on this particular configuration. Now look at the Liberty Precision Machine Anthem S. Okay. Now that if you remember, that was a Pew Science client project. The Anthem series, it's actually a relatively special case in the Pew Science pedigree because the technology in the silencer is developed in large part from help of Pew Science research progression. Now keep in mind how I'm saying this. I'm very, very careful how I'm saying it. I did not help design the silencer, in that I did not instruct anyone how to design a silencer. But the principles discussed on this podcast and in the articles had direct influence into the design of the silencer series and its technology. Okay? What was the result of that? Well, the Anthem series is an incredible performer overall. Incredible performance from Liberty Precision Machine. And you see that. And again, neck and neck with the Monarch here, right? I think it beats the Monarch particularly at the muzzle. But neck and neck. Okay. Overall, for a bolt gun, holistically. The Banish 30 Gold, conventional baffle design. Okay, very good. Gas trap, high back pressure, longer. We get it. Been there before. Know how it works. Got the t-shirt. Well, you guessed it. Neck and neck with the Monarch 762 on this host. Yes. In suppression rating, in damage potential, in danger potential, danger risk of danger, hearing damaged risk potential. Say it, whatever you want to, however you want to say it. So you got to keep in mind The Helios QD, the Anthem S, the Monarch 762, all of them as tested on this host weapon are almost exactly the same size. And I have them, I literally have them sitting on my desk, stood up in front of me right now. The Anthem S is a little shorter. Okay, I don't know if you can tell that from the picture. I'll have to look later. But basically, they're all the same size, give or take. Same diameter. All of that. And guys, it's because these are the tested configurations I'm showing you. Look at the photo I posted. Just look at it. Look at the Instagram post. I posted them side by side in the tested configurations for you to see this. Okay, so contextually, the Monarch 762 is generating the same danger that these silencers generate on this host, but it's doing it in a somewhat different way. And there's some nuance that we'll get to here that will help you understand if that matters to you or not. Because just because you have a certain suppression rating overall, a composite rating, it doesn't mean that the silencer is performing exactly the same way in all cases, okay? So I'm walking you through this because sometimes I think people get confused, and that's okay. Again, that's okay. So let's take a look. Let's get technical now. Get into 6155 again. If you were still looking at the rankings table, I want you to scroll down in the article, past the scary table with numbers in it. Don't look at that. Until you get to the data plots in Figure 1. You have Figure 1A and Figure 1B. This is pressure in the free field at the location I previously described to you. You can see that blowdown is relatively fast, okay, but not super duper fast. No. You can see that the amplitude is high, but not super high. So this, by definition, it's an upper level bolt gun performer. When you zoom into early time, that'll be Figure 1B. You'll see incredibly consistent initial jetting, and you'll see FRP indicators. You'll see those FRP indicators early. You'll see them often, and they aren't small. You can't hide them. They're actually quite large. So we'll pause here for a second, and just in the discussion. And this is where I want to tell you something about the physical characteristics of the silencer. And I wanted to wait until right here exactly to tell you about it, in case you didn't know, because I want to highlight, it's very specific. I told you how this silencer is matching the performance of all these other silencers, right? We talked about the danger, and they're all the same danger. Okay, fine. What you see in the article, and what I didn't tell you yet in the talk, is that the distal end of the Monarch is completely radially vented. It literally has radial circumferential vents at the distal end that are dumping gas to atmosphere directly. Okay. Now, they aren't venting a large annulus like in a Helios QD with the vented end cap. It's not the same thing. This is not that. This is not that at all. Do not think that it is that. It is not that. And if you think they're the same, you're going to have a bad time. Different physics. On the Monarch, these are passive vents. They're not active in that you cannot change their configuration. In other words, right? They're fixed. They are simply venting the last expansion chamber more. So that is so... they're venting more than the primary axial bore vent. So it's giving you more distal vent area with a forced increased turbulence generation prior to vent. That is the succinct way to describe how those vents work. And why did they do that? Well, quite simply, to make the silencer not as loud. So if you would have made the hole in the middle bigger by an equal area, that would not have worked the same way. How do we know that? Well, it's because of how physics work and how silencers work. I believe I spoke about this last episode, or maybe a couple episodes before that. Go listen to. I explained why this is the case. So when you look back at Figure 1B, you see this incredible consistency of the first coupled jet, right? What is that telling you about how this design works? What is literally the first peak in the waveforms in the way it's presented in the figure? What is it telling you? It's telling you that the first pulse is from primary bore flow and bullet shock. That's what it's telling you. The vents are dumping gas, but not yet. You just wouldn't get a shock profile like that from a vent array like that. You just wouldn't. I do not believe the blast load would propagate like that. Now, caveat, without high-speed imagery, I can't say that to be 100% definitively true. However, if I was a betting man, I would bet that these vents have some delay. Okay. And I believe that delay to be caused by spiral paths on the underside of the end cap geometry, which induces turbulence. I borescoped it, so I cheated. Hey, sorry. No, nothing that says I can't do that. Okay, so there you go. Okay, I mean, I had to know. Okay, so I was like, why is there that decoupling, but it's not super far away? So it's pretty close. Okay, but why is it decoupled that cleanly? I was like, let me look. And I looked, and sure enough, there was something. I was like, okay, I buy it. Again, and those vents are not coming from an annulus, so they're not like that flow isn't jumping ahead. Otherwise, you would have seen something different. And there's many such cases in the pedigree for you to prove this to yourself on your own time. Okay? We know this. The good thing about the data being real is that we can look at it later and determine how things work. Okay? Yeah. So what happened? And hey, what a good segue, right? What a good segue. What happens after the first shock profile then? Well, the boom boom happens. Yeah, that's boom boom time. No, that's a technical term. No, it's not. It's not a technical term. I'm talking about the second peak. The second peak is where you start to experience the violence of the Monarch. And to be clear, it is violent. Do not think it is tame in some ways in this early time. You are venting radially at the distal end of a rifle silencer with 308, guys. Okay, what do you think happens when you jet high-pressure gas out of multiple holes at the end of a silencer? What do you think happens? Well, you get directional wave propagation. And how does that manifest? Well, it's in accordance with the nozzle angle. The nozzle angle is probably important. Okay, what do you get then? What's the second dynamic phenomenology that you run into? Well, wave coalescence, and it happens pretty fast for multiple jets. And that manifests directly into combined jet nozzle flow, and if you're not careful, you might mistake it for a typical silencer signature. If you don't look at this real close you might miss it. But this isn't a typical signature. Okay, let's go on to figure 2. Talk about why. You're getting stage progression of gas jet momentum. You're looking at momentum transfer potential in the free field in figure 2. This is also known as impulse. Okay, the FRP is a bad boy here. It's a bad mamma jamma, bad man. FRP is a bad man, not good. The FRP is not good on this gun with this silencer. Super fast ramp, step change, keeps on beating you like you owe it money. That's what the FRP does, unfortunately, on this host with this silencer. Now, on subsequent shots, and this is interesting, and you can click on the figure to make it bigger if you like to look at this and really look at it. You get these step changes in each of the subsequent shots. They're not nearly as severe. You actually, and this is actually extremely interesting. You actually get very consistent behavior here, all things considered. It's really not until shot 5 that things start to run away a little bit. And I do say a little. I say a little bit, but it is noticeable, particularly in inner ear response, you'll hear it. So some takeaways. You have a silencer that's dumping gas to atmosphere with a bunch of holes in the end, but it's super consistent at early time. And through the combustion chain and initial blowdown, it's actually very well behaved. These are all facts. We can view that in the raw data. Yes. Okay. Yes, we have severe FRP, but outside of that, well behaved. Okay. So why would this silencer be doing this? I mean, really, it's doing things typically reserved for more straightforward conventional designs, but it's able to achieve them with some venting too. Okay. And what does that do? Well, it ramps up the rate at which gas leaves the silencer. What does that do? It drops the omega metric, right? Because the omega metric is inversely proportional to the slope of the rate of rise. That's the derivation. Yes. So the way the silencer is achieving these signatures, and the reason the fingerprints look like this, is because it has multiple vent stages, and the combustion of 308 has enough duration to saturate the first stage above a stagnation pressure, and it happens soon enough that you get a pretty smooth transition, and there's enough turbulence that the omega doesn't drop too far. Okay, so it's not super loud. They're not. Okay. Let me say this. Maybe I'm being too complicated. They're not venting enough. Okay, that's why it's quieter. And it's not. It doesn't work like a Huxworks silencer. So their mechanism is not nearly as efficient as the Huxworks, and that's why they can't vent more. If they vent more, it'd be way too loud. That's why. The Monarch 762 is much more primitive. It's a much more primitive design actually than it's in some ways it's more primitive than the Anthem too, but we'll get into that. Well, not in some ways. It is more primitive, but we'll get to that. The stages, I do not think, from some conversations I've had, I don't think the stages are connected like you would probably do normally. But basically what you're doing, you're stagnating flow in a sequence. You're moving onward to a new stage fast enough that you don't slow down the game more than you want. And you take this all in. You really think about how this thing is working. And you ask yourself, well, would it do the same thing without the vents? I mean, no, but it wouldn't be too far off probably, I think. I mean, that's my guess. I don't know for sure, but my guess is probably not. I mean, at least on this host, just due to the pressures and durations involved. I honestly don't think the vents would change a significant amount. They would change things, but not how you may think. The $1 million question here, because that's all hypothetical, that doesn't matter. The $1 million question here is what does it do up front? Yeah, what does it do up front? What's the stuff inside in early time right near the muzzle orifice? Yeah. Is there some stuff there that's helping this chain even happen? I mean, are they kickstarting this in a way that is there secret sauce, right? Is something there? Well, there has to be something there because given the omega metric and the suppression rating combination, there has to be something up front. You couldn't just have a normal blast baffle. It wouldn't make sense. So it should be no surprise to you that if you look in the silencer's blast chamber, you will see a vent array. That's right. You will, I promise. You can look at it yourself. Okay? It must utilize this to be able to do what you see in figure 1 and 2. It has to. There's no... you have to avoid early stagnation in order to dump the gas fast enough. And if you really want to do something with a silencer on a semi-auto gun that's interesting, you're going to have to do what they do up front. You're going to have to drop your alpha parameter. Guys, and this is actually serendipitous that we know this. You know one alternative to this, right? There's an alternative. When you have distal vents that are open and they're radially configured, but you don't have multiple stages, you know what happens. You know what happens. Look at Article 6.63, the KGM R30 in the vented configuration, and then go to that. And I pulled it up earlier because I wanted to see. Go look at that article, Article 663, and let me pull it up to find the date so we can all be on the same page together. Article 663, which was published January 20th, 2022. So over 2 years ago, we published this paper. And if you want to go look at that article, scroll down to, I believe it was figure 7B in that article. Yes, because there were two tests in the article, because there was the KGM R30 has radial distal vents that may be closed with set screws. We tested in the unvented and the vented configuration. Figure 7B displays the early time free field pressure 1 meter left of the end cap with the vents open. Okay? So, just to prove all the haters online or wherever you are, the people who doubt this data is real, it would be the longest and most sophisticated con in the history of the world. Because look at figure 7B in Article 663. See the absolute lack of delay in the coupling? Well, for one, it's not a multi-stage silencer. Is it a lot louder? Well, not a lot louder, but it's louder than the Monarch. And how much louder? About exactly how much louder you would expect given the technologies. Guys, this pedigree is solid. And what a great juxtaposition. Figure 7B in Article 663 from over 2 years ago to figure 1B in the article published last week. Compare them. Then look at the two silencers. Cut them both in half. I don't care. See what they're doing and why they're doing it. Look at those figures. And then convince yourself this isn't real. Good luck. Okay, guys? Come on. It's time. Pay the piper here, guys. And so there are levels to this game. You see what Four Systems did. You see, these are years. What was it? CGS Helios QD. We tested that in 2020. Then I think it was Anthem S was, what was that? Anthem S was 2022. KGM R30 was 2022. Now they get the Four Systems Monarch 2024. Levels to the game. Different technologies. But the data is consistent. The phenomenology is consistent. The physics is consistent. The suppression rating, the hearing damage risk potential, the danger rating makes sense. So you go back to the front of this thing, right? We're talking about the inside. You talk about this front of this thing, the proximal end, the blast chamber. We haven't done semi-auto testing yet, have we? No. But you're in luck. Go ahead and skip forward in the article. So we'll go back to 6155. I was skipping around a lot. 6155. Go ahead and go back to the article. If you remember, scroll down, skip the ear stuff. I do encourage you to read it. It's important, particularly for FRP. Skip over that for a second. Go to the omega metric chart in Figure 6. Scroll down, all the way down. Okay, so Figure 6, that is the logarithmic scale presentation of the omega metric for 7.62 NATO from a 20-inch barrel. Specifically, what you're looking at in Figure 6. So the Monarch 7.62 is highlighted in red. In that figure, you see some other silencers with it in Zone 5. Zone 5 that do, in fact, have similar omegas. That's why they're close together. They do, in fact, dump gas to atmosphere at a similar rate. Again, for those of you that are new to this or have not read that research, the omega metric is literally a mathematical calculation using raw test data as derived in white paper 640. 6.40. It is completely open source and literally available for anyone to duplicate in the entire world. Nothing secret at all. It is. In fact, we gave you the formula. Why isn't anyone else publishing? I don't know. It's okay. You don't have to. It's just thought people wanted something open source, so we did it. People complained and then they get it. Well, you don't use it? Okay, don't use it then. What you could do, okay, look at Zone 5. Okay. And you could think to yourself, well, gosh, Jay, are you saying that the Monarch 7.62 has the same back pressure as the Griffin Optimus and the Sancerco Harvester? No. That is not what that chart says. Okay? What the chart's telling you is that the gas momentum transfer potential rate out of the end of the silencers is similar. Do you want me to say that a different way? The rate of rise to maximum peak positive phase impulse out of the end of the silencers is similar. The rate at which gas momentum propagates out of the end of the silencers is similar. The speed at which the gas comes out of the silencer is similar. That's what the omega metric being similar means physically. Okay. But if there are complex things happening in the blast chamber and the proximal parts of the silencer allow expedient blast load clearing, or let me say it a different way. If the first expansion chamber doesn't accumulate impulse fast enough because it's being cleared or vented, vented is another word for cleared. In blast load propagation vernacular, we say clearing, because there's a clearing wave that sweeps across the surface. In this case, it's a little different. It doesn't matter. If you don't vent enough in the blast chamber, in the first expansion chamber, or rather, if you vent more in the first expansion chamber, in other words, if you allow that load to clear, and you're in the same omega zone, you could very well have an early time flow rate that exceeds that of traditional silencers in the zone. Okay? Even though you have the same omega, the same amount of gas coming out, meaning, not the same, that's a bad word, the same rate of gas coming out, if you accumulate impulse differently in the proximal section, your early time flow rate will exceed or be different than other neighbors in the same omega zone. So take a look at the silencers in zone 5 of the Monarch. So which one of these potentially will behave like the Monarch on a gas gun? You want to guess? Let's guess. Probably R30 KGM vented I'd buy that. Potentially the Anthem K, just because I know how it works a little bit. The other ones though, I bet you they cycle your weapon harder. Now that's just a guess going off of memory of how they're designed. I'm like, in my mind, I'm looking at their cross sections in my brain, and I'm like, yeah, they're probably going to cycle your gun a little harder. I think so. Now they might gas you the same, but depends on the gun. It's very complicated. So we don't know without more testing, but the omega metric is meant to give you a quick and dirty picture of gas momentum. Okay. And that it absolutely does, because again, that is literally what it measures. Gas momentum transfer rate out of the end of the silencer. If you don't consider alpha, if you don't consider shock reflections and additive impulse inside the blast chamber, you will not get the complete picture. If every silencer was a conventional cone, even up front, you could use the omega metric directly. You could. It would work. But you can't, because silencers are more advanced than that. You have to measure inside. Now, for certain weapons, it's funny. This is really funny. For certain weapons, it won't matter, and things in close omega will gas you the same, which is interesting. And and for some other weapons, like Scar, I'm looking in your direction. The weapon is going to be more sensitive to alpha, and actually, in particular, with a Scar, alpha and omega will punish you. Scar is a princess, but not all weapons are created equal, and not all weapons respond in early time and late time back pressure the same way. Every weapon is different. And certain silencers, you could take two silencers, put them on one gun, and they have a certain relationship. Then you take those same two silencers, put them on another gun, and the relationship changes. Did you know that? True. Suppressed weapon systems. Systems. Okay. Suppression rating is for the silencer. The omega metric is a research parameter. It's very complicated. There's a reason I don't put it in the ranking. Oh, people ask me, oh, can you put the omega metric in the rankings table? Nope, sure can't. Sure won't. You shouldn't be ranking something by omega because it's not even. I mean, we honestly didn't even have to publish it, but we thought we were doing the industry a favor by publishing it so everyone could compute it, and then they could use it it's a research metric. It really helps you understand how the silencers are working if you use it for that. But if you don't, then you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. It's like everyone wants, oh, you should tell us what color your shoelaces are. You're not being transparent. And then you give them like literally a derivation of a research parameter and they're like, and it's crickets. Oh, but he didn't tell us what color his shoelaces are, so we can't. All this data is wrong. Okay, well, it's like, what are you talking about, right? Okay, so scroll back up to figure 5, okay? Go back up above the omega metric chart. The figure before this is the bar chart. That's right. Okay, it's the one with the colors. Okay, what is shown on this chart? Everything in omega zone 5 and below. Okay, because the reason I tell you that is because we had some people ask us, well, why isn't so-and-so silencer on the list anymore? Why aren't you showing my favorite silencer? My silencer's not on the list anymore. No. Nothing's left off the list, guys. The list is in the ranking section of the standard. The plot in the article is omega zone 5 and below. And I put that in the... I put it in the legend there. You can read it. It says that. It says silencers with omega back pressure metric, omega 762 in zone 5 and below are shown. It says that. I wrote it there. It's in the figure. Okay, read the legend. You know, if I put everything in there, the plots get too big, and it's not productive making them that big. So I shrunk it down for readability, and you know what? Also for utility, frankly, because what is this showing at the end of the day? At the end of the day, guys, what is Figure 5 showing? It is showing that for the momentum transfer rate out of the end of this freaking silencer, for the rate at which it dumps combustion gases to atmosphere, it's really quiet. That's a high-level takeaway, isn't it? That is something you can say definitively based on this test data and analysis, yes? Should I repeat that? For the rate at which this silencer dumps combustion gases to atmosphere, it's really quiet. It's actually quieter. It's beating everything in this zone and below. Correct? Or am I misreading? I think so. Look at the data, right? What's the closest thing? What's the closest thing on this chart? Nomad TI? Or is it Huxworks? Okay. Flow 762 or Nomad TI? Okay, that's a big deal. Why? Right? Because those are doing very well. I mean, the Nomad TI is incredibly quiet silencer. So, I mean, it really is. So, the Monarch 762, it's eclipsing that performance, and the flow rate is that high? That's interesting. It's wild, really. But remember, it's omega. Just the omega. So you look at all this. You look at all this, and you look at the omega metric. You look at the suppression rating on the host. You look at the blast chamber, and you see it has an alpha that probably isn't super low, probably isn't super high. You ask yourself, what is this thing going to do on a gas gun? You know, you ask yourself this. I asked myself this. What is it going to do on the Mark 18? What will it do on 5.56? Will the performance scale? And how will the ejection port blast be? Will the gas blowback be similar to that of the other silencers in the same omega zone on the same AR? And these are good questions. These are good questions to think about. And the answer is we'll see. And I can tell you right now, from what we see in the data and from what I have gone over with you today, there's no way this thing is going to give you the same shooter experience as a Huxworks flow silencer on an AR. There is no way, dude. There's no way you're going to have that low of a blowback on the same gun. It just won't happen. That's not how this silencer works. It's not what our data shows will happen. It just will not. It is not possible. Now, could it do pretty well? Dude, maybe. Maybe, dude. I don't know. I think the answer is maybe. We'll have to see. Now, is the Monarch 7.62 going to potentially give a better shooter experience than an Anthem S on the same, Mark 18 or something? I don't know. It could. I don't know. Not 100% certain. It could. And, you can look at the Anthem S data on the bolt gun and compare. Remember, the Anthem S is intended to relieve stagnation pressure and give a really good suppression performance supersonic, not a super high flow rate. That's not what the Anthem S is for. Okay, so not the same intention, really, for the Anthem S. So don't get it twisted. It's important to look at that. Now, look at the data, and you'll see that. Again, the Anthem S, I think it's 6.79 is the article for you of bolt action. Now, go look at the early time pressure history in article 679 of the Anthem S and see, let me look, because I had that up in another tab. Yeah. See how decoupled that initial event, do you see how decoupled that initial event is from the primary jetting? See how much time delay there is? And you'll see what I'm talking about. Then you look at the impulse, right? You'll see what I'm talking about. Different omega zone, right? That's up in the middle of omega zone 6, right? Okay. Same with the Helios QD, actually. But now Helios QD, it's lower in zone 6, but it's still a whole zone above the Monarch. Okay, so now caveat. Helios QD has some very interesting early venting, very interesting, but we're comparing the solid end cap performance here, right? So you have that lower alpha with higher omega. Very interesting comparison, actually. Excuse me. Very interesting comparison. If you use a Monarch and a Helios QD on a semi-auto host, what will the shooter think? I bet you it's close. And in some cases, like near reflecting surfaces, I bet the Monarch could be worse due to the vents. Okay, that's something to think about, and I think that could be true. When you really look at this, right? So now, this thing is Inconel. Is it heavy? Yeah, of course. Solid nickel alloy, bruh. But reportedly, you can mag dump through it until the cows come home, and that's fun, good times. Yeah, it is. Now, they tell me they're doing a titanium version, or they have, or they will, or whatever. So, for you folks that don't have severe firing schedules, maybe you could look at that if you're interested in the silencer. Right? I could see that being very attractive for the performance shown here. When you looking at the rankings table, and looking at Figure 5 in context, that could be attractive. But then again, you're probably only looking at this if you want to use it on semi-autos. So then why would you get the titanium one, right? So it depends. It depends on your firing schedules, right? It's just like anything. Like titanium silencers can be great for semi-autos unless you're doing burn downs, and so you need to think about what you're really gonna do. I would say this technology, which it's kind of there's nothing really new in the Monarch. It's probably a mismatch. Is that a mashup? It's a combination of a lot of different technologies that have been done before in other places. I think the combination of what they've done here, this total package, I do think it's a silencer to pay attention to in the market. I do think it is. I think even if you're not interested in this model, in this highly competitive space, I do believe this is one of the things to watch going forward, because this is sitting in a range with some very interesting performance potentials, okay? Particularly moving on to semi-auto weapons. And we're going to have to see how that shakes out. We're going to have to see how that shakes out with this silencer and the Anthem S and the Helios QD and things like that. And because pole positions can change depending on weapon system. Now, talking pragmatically, the question you're probably asking yourself, and I know a lot of people ask me this all the time when silencers come out, well, who is this silencer for? One second. Who is this silencer for? Well, like for example, and this is, again, I wanted this topic to be very context heavy. That's the power of all this, right? So, for example, if you already have a Helios QD, is this going to be more attractive to you? Probably not. I can't think of a technical reason why. I mean, there's probably nothing the silencer does better than a Helios QD overall, from what I'm seeing. I mean, they're right in the desk in front of me. I'm not seeing anything it's really doing differently. Now, what if you already have an Anthem S? Well, that might be a different story because you might need something with lower back pressure. Maybe it offers you an alternative there. I don't know. I think the silencer is for people who want a 30 caliber silencer that's also appropriate for semi-auto use. I think that's what this is. I think that's who the target for this would be. I think it's for people who want to reduce back pressure. And unfortunately, again, we don't have the semi-auto characterization yet. We really can't speculate about that. Now, on a semi-auto, it could be very similar to a Helios QD, for example. We wouldn't be surprised. Okay, it could be. And hey, you know what? And it may split the difference between a vented and solid cap Helios QD potentially for the shooter. I don't know. Could. That's kind of just a reckless guess. Now, you want to talk about durability? I mean, it might have similar durability. I mean, they're both Inconel, but, and this is something to think about, due to the blast chamber geometry, the Helios QD is probably a little more durable than the Monarch on really heavy fire applications, though. And, and I think that's splitting hairs because, I mean, I think very few people are going to push these silencers like that to begin with, so maybe it doesn't even matter. I think the issues really when you go to titanium in both of the models, that's when geometry is really important too. But I mean, make no mistake, geometry of blast chamber, even with Inconel silencers, can dictate durability. It's not just material; shapes matter too. You know what I mean? They do. So it's interesting, right? Isn't it interesting? Like, I have these 3 silencers on my desk. I was looking through this to prepare this talk, and I was like, well, what is the best way to explain how this thing performs? I think we've done that. I think we've answered the why. I'm looking through the article and see if there's anything like, I think the FRP is something you really need to know about. I'm looking. What else? I forget anything. It's hub capable. Again, we use the Atlas, so a little bit longer. It's interesting. You look at we talked about this. I wrote this in the article too. If you really wanted something to be louder than this, you'd probably go to like a Sandman L. You'd have to go all the way down to like Sandman L, wouldn't you, to get like way louder? Roughly. And then if you wanted something really quiet, you go like Ultra 9, Lahar 30L. And that's right above the Anthem S. So you see this and you're like, that it's just that zone, that it's just this little packed zone that has formed. When you're racing, it's funny because I talked earlier, I kind of preached to you how the suppression rate is not a score, and it's not a score, but we do rank them, and I just don't want you to think it's subjective or something. It's definitely a mathematical computation. I don't want you to think like it can change based on the wind, like the feelings of the day. Like, oh, someone felt bad, so it changed. No, like the ref had a bad day. No. There's no referee, only physics. So when you but when you're racing and like and like whether it be cars or people, and you end up having like little pockets of like little packs. I mean, if you look at the rankings table sorted by composite, descending, you see this pack, of the Anthem S, the Monarch 762, the Helios QD, the Banis 30 gold, and the Chairman, and I mean and the Surge. I mean the Enticer, and the Flow's getting up in there, and it's these silencers are just, I mean, you know how sometimes you hear people say, it's funny, when you talk about suppressed small arms system performance with regard to signature severity and damage risk potential, you hear, and some people who just, there's always going to be a contrarian in every argument, which is fine. It's human nature. And there's a lot of people that will say things like, well, it doesn't matter because all these silencers sound the same anyway. It's like, well, first of all, that statement is ludicrous because it's not true. But for them, in their anecdotal experience, well, what if they all were like shooting an Anthem S and a Monarch and a Helios QD and a Banish 30 gold on a bolt gun at 1.6 meters above the ground. And I mean, they thought they were all the same damage risk. I don't know. It's probably unlikely because these have different frequency components, so they're going to sound different, but the damage severity is similar. I'm just saying, like, when you look at the suppression ratings being close, when you get a really big data set, you see that there are indeed a lot of options at each performance level. But also, like you've seen in this talk today, there are little nuances that can really make you think about things. When you have vents at the end of a silencer and you move toward a wall, what happens? Why do people have bad experiences with Huxworks flow-through rifle silencers near reflecting surfaces or berms? The omega metric is really low. And the way they vent with those distal vents can really induce some interesting wave coalescence and reflections. And the low frequency components really, really surprise people subjectively. And we've shown that in the member research supplement. So what about the Monarch? Is the Monarch have the same gas velocity, the same particle velocity out of the end as the Huxworks? Well, no. It's not how the silencer works. Remember, the stages are not even connected in some ways. And the vent array, like I said, I did say this earlier, the vent array on the end of the Monarch isn't even as advanced because it's not venting for the same purpose even. But it is venting nonetheless. So you do have to think about that. When those omegas drop, you need to think about that near reflecting surfaces and what you're gonna. So that's a little bit of a nuance that you're not going to see just by looking at the suppression rating in the free field on the rankings table. Okay, so that's why we read the articles. That's why we do the podcast. And we want to make sure everyone understands all these little tiny things. And if you need to know more, you can always email at tech@pewscience.com. And if you're a pro member of Pew Science, use that email address and we will certainly help you out as soon as we can. Okay. So thank you to Force Systems for trusting the Pew Science Laboratory to perform this work. Front of Rifle Systems out of Indiana. Indiana, right? Hold on. I don't want to mess up. That's where all the corn is, right? Yeah. I was like, I better get that right. No, they do have a lot of corn up there. I've heard their deer are big. Now they don't have as much corn as Knight's Armament does, but that's a different type of corn. Yeah, they're relatively new to the scene. These front of rifle systems folks. So I think they look to be doing some interesting things. So if you see them around, tell them what's up. Give them the old Pew Science welcome. Tell them they did a great job, and give them my thanks. And they are one of the companies, literally helping Pew Science to push the silencer industry forward one test at a time. They literally are. Okay, so this concludes this episode of the podcast. We are working hard to get some very interesting publications to all of you soon. So please know that we are hearing your requests, and we thank you for your patience. Please stay safe, and I will talk with you folks again soon. Okay, bye.